Hey, what's up people? Today we are going to take a look at the Mora Pathfinder. Now the Pathfinder is something very different from what Mora usually does. It's basically a lot bigger in size. We have a 17.4 centimeter blade, which is 6.8 inches, and it's just 3 millimeters on the blade stock thickness. Very robust all the way to the tip. And we have a Scandi ground blade and a polymer handle. It feels very comfortable in hand when just holding it. Nice finger choil on the front, so it puts you in a little bit of a saber grip, I would say. And yeah, polymer piece at the end as well. Very wide blade. It's like 3 to 2.8 centimeters wide. And in this video we're gonna compare it to the K-Bar 1217, which is a red tang and has 4 millimeters in blade stock thickness. And then also the JP Batoning M95, which the tang goes all the way to the end. It's just enclosed, also 4 millimeters in blade stock thickness. And then the Mora Pathfinder has a stick tang, like you see in this picture. This is a different Mora, but it has the same handle. And yeah, so this tang doesn't go all the way to the end of the handle. 3.1 millimeters in blade stock thickness, as we mentioned before. Very thin, could be a bad or a good thing as well. Yeah, I'll show you the sheaths as well. The sheath in the middle is an aftermarket Kydex from TRC, so this is not the sheath how the Batoning comes with. But the Mora comes with these smaller loops on the back, and the K-Bar comes with either leather or Kydex. Both the Batoning and the K-Bar have belt loops, and the Mora just has molly straps basically. Yeah, don't really like the sheath setup on the Mora too much. Gonna talk about that a little bit later. First we're gonna do some cutting tasks. This is the factory edge from the Mora Pathfinder. As you can hear by the sound, it's a little bit rough. It's not the finest edge, but it's alright. It cuts the paper decently. Now my K-Bar here is, at the point of me making this video, not the sharpest knife. It's a little bit dull. It still manages to cut through paper just because of its geometry, because it's so thin. But as you can see, it has a little bit of troubles because it's yeah, close to getting dull very soon. Now the JP Batoning here is also a used edge. It's not a factory edge anymore, or not a completely sharp edge anymore, but it still cuts fine through paper. And in this first test, we're gonna cut some cardboard to see how much binding we have with the blade. Now, there is actually a little bit of binding with the Pathfinder, I guess because the grind is so low, and yeah, has a little bit of troubles cutting through the cardboard, but it still manages to do that. Now, there may be the question, why do you cut cardboard with an outdoor fixed blade? Like I said, I just want to see how the cutting geometry is really like. It's not a realistic test, so to speak, but it's still a good test to find out a lot about the knife. Now, next we cut with the JP Batoning. The flat ground blade does very well. A little bit of binding at the shoulders, but overall it's decent. A lot less pressure needed than with the Pathfinder, so you don't need as much force when cutting through material. Now the K-Bar 1217 does also well, even though, like I showed you before, it's not the sharpest knife anymore, but the geometry simply goes through that material easily. 4 millimeters is not a thick blade, and yeah, the grind is nice and high, so yeah, cuts very well. So if I would have to rank these in terms of how well they cut in this test, I would put the JP Batoning M95 and the K-Bar next to each other, and then the Pathfinder in second place. So next we're gonna cut some rope. Now, as you can see with the factory edge, I also struggle to cut through that rope. Could be a little bit better, but you know, it's the factory edge. We can improve on that later on. The M95 did pretty well, considering that it also was a used edge. I just got back from a mountain trip with the M95, and yeah, so the edge was not the nicest anymore. The cable here also had quite a bit of problems with the rope, and I also ran out of rope at this point, so I had to get a new one. And yeah, as you can see, it struggles a little bit, but this is a knife that's next to dull, so we can forgive it that. With a sharp edge, it should be a lot better. Now, why do you test a knife that has not a sharp edge? I don't know. I just had it and want to compare factory edges to used edges. And as you can see, the factory edge from Mora doesn't do as good either, even though the knife is sharp. So yeah, clearly the JP Batoning has an advantage here, simply because, yeah, it's a better edge on this knife. So yeah, I would put the Pathfinder and the K-bar in this test next to each other. Now, next test is chopping. So we're gonna chop 36 times with the Pathfinder and 36 times with the K-bar and 46 times with the M95. And I show you the edge here because I wanted to show you that it has a little bit of reflections already from the rope cutting test. Chopping with the Pathfinder was good. We had some vibrations in the handle, specifically in the end of the handle. Next, the K-bar. Show the edge here as well. And then the M95 looks good from the edge. Now, I wrote the names next to each other so you can see how the knives did, and also drew a line so you can see which one cut the deepest. And the M95 chopped the deepest, and then the K-bar is very close to that, and then the Pathfinder is a little bit behind that. So I went on and redid this test simply because I wanted to see if we get the same results if we do it another time. Because there are already, even though it's the same wood, there are a lot of different variables. So again, I draw a line so you can see a little bit easier which one is cut the deepest. And the M95 again did the best, and then the K-Bar in second place and the Pathfinder in third place. So yeah, the Pathfinder, I guess it's a little bit lighter. Also, the Pathfinder weighs only 6 ounces, which is 175 grams. All right, let's talk about ergonomics on this chopping test. I think the handle that felt the best was also the knife that did the best in the test, the M95 Batoning knife. It has this little, little bird's peak here in the back, and it's very comfortable, even though it's kind of aggressively the foam, or not the foam, the grivery, whatever this is, the molded handle here is kind of aggressively milled here, but it feels quite good actually in hand. You don't lose control over the knife. The knife that really surprised me in this test was the K-Bar, because well, it's a Coke bottle handle, and it actually felt very, very good. I had no slipping in the back. It just stayed in hand very good. If the knife would have been a little bit sharper, maybe it would have done as good as the M95, but you never know. I still think the M95 is the better chopping knife, but this knife did also very good. And then the worst knife in this test was the Mora Pathfinder. It kind of, the handle is really comfortable, but it kind of gave me a lot of vibration in this area. For some reason, this end of the handle doesn't feel as good as the handle on the M95. So yeah, the Pathfinder. Sadly, I would have thought that this one would have been very good in chopping. I would have thought it would have been better than the K-Bar, but it wasn't. But this is still the factory edge. A lot of things can change if we put our own edge on here. So yeah, let's move on. Now, since we are already doing the harder used tasks, we may as well do some batoning. In this test, I used the same piece of wood and cut it into smaller pieces, so we have a little bit of a better comparison. Now, I started off with the K-Bar and ran into some issues. Basically, I did get the knife stuck here, and yeah. I spare you the entire footage because it takes way too long. I tried to get it through, but as you can see here, it got stuck in this section here, and I can't pull it out anymore. Neither can I push it through. So I tried a different piece of wood from the same original piece with the JP Batoning, just to see if it was the wood or the knife. And yeah, as you can see, the M95 did very fine. Now, then I started to get the K-Bar out of the wooden block that it was stuck in. It was very difficult and took a long time actually. The knife didn't take any damage though. It was still straight, and yeah, no wiggle in the handler, so everything was still fine. So I took the piece that we just got the K-Bar stuck in and tried to split it from the other side with the grain, with the Batoning. And yeah, it was apparently it was not the knife, it is the wood. It had a big knot in it. So yeah, it was very difficult with the M95 as well. yeah, I had to pry it apart because it was not getting through there. So it was not the K-bar's fault. As you can see, there was a nasty knot in here and some twisting in the wood where the knife couldn't glide through. So we gave the K-bar another chance. This time the knot is on the bottom and not in the center. So, and again we cut with the grain. All of these knives today are carbon steels, by the way, so all of them are pretty tough. 1095 on the K-bar, and then we have ATCRV2 blade steel on the Batoning here. And now let's try the Mora Pathfinder. Yeah, same kind of wood again. Yeah, it actually split the wood without going through there. I guess it's because the geometry is a little bit wedgy. Maybe it's because of that it doesn't go cleanly through there right away. And again, because it's a stick tang, we check for straightness and also for wiggle in the handle, and there is none of that. With these smaller pieces, the Pathfinder does very well. As you can see, it goes cleanly through there. As you can see, we have some issues with knots today, but yeah, it's not the knife's fault, you know, every knife has troubles when it hits a knot, and yeah, we have to split it like this. Now I started doing random pieces of wood. These are not as comparable as the first pieces we did, but I just wanted to get a feel for how well the knives do when batoning. So yeah, in the end, batoning was not the easiest task with the kind of wood we had. The K-bar here with the 4mm blade stock thickness and the Batoning as well against the Pathfinder, which just has 3mm on the blade stock thickness, had a little bit of an advantage, I would say. Thicker blades always do better in batoning. But yeah, anyways, I would say the K-bar actually did the least well in this test. And then in second place, the Mora Pathfinder, which sometimes it did split the wood rather than going straight through it. But the best one clearly was the JP Batoning M95. Yeah. This cable just looks so beautiful. I have this for a really long time now. It has gotten a beautiful look over the years and also has picked up a little bit of patina as well. I do really like it. The K-Bar is just a great knife. I really dig it. Now I show you the edges as well. Now the M95, like I said, I have been using it a bit before this video, and it has a chip in the spot right here, which it didn't have before, so it must have gotten the chip during this testing. Now 8T CRV2 steel is not a steel that does chip easily, but yeah, it did a little bit, not a lot of chipping. Coating held up fine as well. Yeah, the coating on the Pathfinder, however, suffered a little bit, as you can see on the bottom. It got a little bit lighter in color, and the edge also had some rolling and a little bit of chipping as well, but very minor chipping overall. The carbon steel that Mora uses here seems to be very tough, especially with the edge geometry. I mean, this is a zero edge Scandi ground blade, so yeah, it could be worse, I guess, but yeah, held up fine. But it had the most edge damage from all the knives we tested. The K-Bar, like I said, it was not the sharpest to begin with, but it didn't took any edge damage whatsoever. So 1095, good stuff, very tough usually, depending how you sharpen it. And yeah, this one has been resharpened a bit. Now in the end, I did some carving and wood cutting with the Pathfinder to see, you know, if you're still able to do that with ease. And yeah, it was decent. I did compare it with the Mora Eldris, which is a beautiful little carving knife. Cuts very well, also has a Scandi ground blade. And yeah, I think this is really what the Pathfinder is meant for, obviously. It's not for batoning or, you know, big chopping. It's meant to do feather sticks and stuff like that. It's meant to go in the outdoors and actually cut wood with. And so yeah, it does very well with the feather sticks here. And just for comparison's sake, I did cut with the other knives as well. Now, I know that the K-Bar usually does better with feather sticking. Like I said, it doesn't have the best edge on it right now, but it did okay. And then the M95 also cuts very well. I do like the flat ground blade on the M95. I think it works very well. And it's not the best at feather sticking though. Yeah, I show you the sheath in the end now. The sheath is a nylon sheath, doesn't have any rattle to it, which is good. Also, if you open up the strap, it doesn't fall out, which is also good. The strap here to close it is a little bit too long, so you sometimes fiddle with it a little bit because it's just too long. But I might cut out I might cut it off a little bit so it's a little bit easier. On the back here we have the MOLLE compatible system. Kind of weird because, I mean, I guess it's fine if you carry it on MOLLE, but if you carry it in your belt, this whole strap, even if you weave it very tightly, it's still very loose. So I don't know really what this is. This carrying system doesn't seem to be thought out that much. I guess it's just a cheap way to make a sheath. Yeah, the nylon material doesn't bother me. We have a 3D patch on the front as well. And then we have this plastic insert, which I think is really good because the plastic insert keeps the knife from falling out. And yeah, it also holds it either way, so you left or right-handed, no problem. Overall, I don't think it's the best sheath ever, just because the way you carry it. Other than that, it's fine. Now, conclusion: the Mora Pathfinder, for the 77 euros that it costs, usually, I think I got it a little bit cheaper. Mine was like 65. I think it's a good knife. It's I haven't tested it too much, except this test right here, but yeah, I will probably do in the future. The only thing that bothers me a little bit is the edge. I think the grind should be higher. I know it's a Scandi. Scandis don't have to go up all the way, but it should be a little bit wider in my opinion, so it doesn't, so it's a little bit too wedgy for me personally. So yeah, I wish it would be a little bit higher. That's everything I'm gonna say negatively on the Mora. And yeah, the handle had a little bit of shock when chopping, but other than that, it's very comfortable. And yeah, blade coating held up fine as well, and the steel did well. Stick tangs can be very reliable if you don't push it too much. Now, the JP Batoning M95 is an absolute winner. 4 millimeters on the blade stock, really nice, comfortable handle, and a good tough steel. And the blade is not too long. It's a little bit shorter actually than the other two knives here, as you can see. Yeah, like I said, I have the aftermarket Kydex sheath, but the sheath you get it usually with, you get it with a plastic sheath or you get it with a leather sheath, and either way it just costs 76 euros usually. So not the most expensive knife either. Very comparable to the Mora Pathfinder in terms of price and size range. Now the K-bar, an absolute classic. I love this knife. This one is the most expensive of them all. It costs right around 100 euros, 100 to 110. But you get a lot of different sheath options. And yeah, the K-bar is just a classic. Now, if I would rate them in terms of performance and usability, put the M95 in the top, K-bar in second place, and Pathfinder in the last place. And if I would have to rate them in terms of how much I like them, well, I like the K-bar the most because it's just a knife that I have for a long time and I really dig it. The Pathfinder, though, is a really nice knife for the price. I wouldn't pay more than what it costs, though. Wouldn't pay more than 70 euros. Yeah. I'm gonna do more testings in the future with the Pathfinder. Probably even this summer. I'm gonna do an outdoor trip with this knife and see how it actually does in the real world. So yeah, stay tuned for that, I guess. Thank you for watching and have yourself a nice rest of your day. Goodbye, people.